What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YJO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video, and this is going to be a pretty fun one. Okay, this is a Chaos format video, and if you're not aware, Chaos format, you have access to Black Luster Soldier all the way at the beginning, you get access to CED, it makes Chaos arguably the best deck in the room. Historically it was, and people are still testing out this format and finding that it still is very, very formidable. But, there are multiple different ways to play Chaos. Now, I showed off on my channel a more control-focused list, just playing the good stuff cards in the format and then playing CED and BLS as like finishers. But you could also potentially play this deck as more of a Chaos Turbo sort of build. If you're familiar with GOAT format, they've got Chaos Turbo in that format. It's basically trying to turbo out your Chaos monsters as quickly as possible. Things like Thunder Dragon are used. So I figured why not try the same thing here. Now, of course, there are some major differences. For instance, you can't use Night Assailant to get back flip monsters from the graveyard if you are going for a discard-based strategy. I'm also not using like Dimension Fusion. I mean, in GOAT, I think some Chaos Turbo lists do use like Return from the Different Dimension, although it's not like uniform in every Chaos Turbo deck, I don't think. But I'm not using Dimension Fusion because I feel like it's a little bit too much of a brick, and this deck really can't afford to have bricks in hand, as you're already playing 4 Chaos monsters, and if you don't have the Chaos setup for them, then they are bricks. So I'm not playing Dimension Fusion. I'm not playing DMOC in this deck. I will be showing off a DMOC deck later on in my coverage of Chaos format. But for now, I'm just going with CED, BLS, and double Chaos Orc, and then a bunch of cards to potentially draw into these Chaos monsters and draw into ways to set up for these Chaos monsters. So let's go through the card by card here. We've got the BLS, we've got the CED, we've got the double Chaos Orc here. I was initially planning on playing 3 of this card, but, deck space was really, really tight, and I just had to cut something, so I cut the 3rd Chaos Orc here. I'm also playing Break of the Magic Warrior as more spell and trap removal, as well as being in dark. We're playing a Cyber Jar, and this goes along with our double Morphing Jar as well. The Jar package allows us to draw deeper into our deck and potentially set up for more chaos plays. Now, of course, the Cyber Jars do have a little bit of a disadvantage here. If we're drawing so much, we could potentially draw into multiples of Gravekeeper's Spy and Thunder Dragon, both of which we are playing, as Gravekeeper's Spy sets up Darks in Grave, and then Thunder Dragon sets up Lights in Grave. But I do think that, these Jar cards are worth including if you do want to turbo into your stuff. Now, of course, for Cyber Jar, there is also the disadvantage where, while it does pop your opponent's board, it could also give them a bunch of powerful monsters to hit in and attack you if you don't have monster of your own. Luckily, we are playing a bunch of monsters in this deck, so you are likely to have monsters on field after Cyber Jar resolves. Next up, we got Triple DD Warrior Lady, the best light monster in the format. These will often get banished, but you are playing 3 of them, so you can do things like discard them to Graceful Charity or something like that. And these will probably wind up in the grave at some point, or at least some of them will. Next up, we got the Triple Gravekeeper Spy. As I mentioned, you get Darks in Grave. Also, being a 2K defender is very, very good this format, and also does deck then as well. We've also got Injection Fairy Lily to get in for a ton of damage. This was another card that I was considering potentially cutting because it's an Earth and not a Light or a Dark. So it doesn't quite go with our strategy, but having 3,400 attack out of nowhere is really, really strong, and you'll see that in the games that I'm going to show off today. Next up, we got a Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, very, very powerful against other Chaos decks, searchable off of Witch of the Black Forest, so that's why we're only playing 1 of this. And we really did, have to cut down on the other Kaikus to make space for some other stuff. We are playing 2 other Kaikus in the side deck, though. Next up, we got the double Morphing Jar here. This is to, again, draw into more things in your deck. Morphing Jar can be a little bit awkward, as if you're saving like a BLS or CD in hand and you draw Morphing Jar, it's obviously really bad for you. But that's why we're playing multiple Chaos monsters. So even if you do have to discard one of these powerful Chaos monsters, you still wind up with a Chaos Sorcerer potentially. So Morphing Jar, I do think, has a place in this deck, although in the future, in adjusting this, I might potentially, take out the Morphing Jars as well as the card destruction, which we are playing, which I'll talk about later as well. We've also got a Sangan and a Witch of Black Forest to search out pretty much anything we'd want to in our deck except for the Chaos monsters. We've also got a Sinister Serpent, as if we are discarding, this card can be very good. We got the Triple Thunder Dragon, as I mentioned. This also pairs well with our discard cards and also sets up 3 Lights in Grave potentially, which can be hard for an opponent's Kaiku to clear. We also got a Tribe Infecting Virus. If we're playing Sinister Serpent and we're playing Thunder Dragons, I figure Tribe is a very, very good choice. It can clear up very problematic board states for us. And then the Witch, as I mentioned. Moving on to these spells, the spell package here is actually kind of cut down from what a lot of other decks are playing, because we really did need to fill up our deck with monsters to fuel the chaos monsters that we got. So we got card destruction here. Bit of an awkward card in this format. It can set up your opponent's chaos plays as well, which is a little bit awkward. But I figure if you're using this to set up your own chaos plays, you're probably going to be getting more out of it than your opponent is. And also, if you're able to bring out a bunch of chaos monsters hidden for a ton of damage that turn, it might not matter that you're setting up your opponent's chaos stuff. Next up, we got a Change of Heart, Dark Hole, Graceful Charity, Mirage Nightmare, plus the triple MST here. Monster Reborn, Painful Choice. This is very, very good at setting up our graveyard. Although in this deck, Painful Choice is actually like very tough to decide, because oftentimes you've got hand rips that you can send if you're not immediately setting up for a chaos play. But in this deck, it's very, very strange, because you're not playing the hand rips, which I'll talk about in a moment. And so oftentimes you have to pick 5 monsters that you want to send, and you don't often want to send your deck thinners like Spies or Thunder Dragons, because then you'll just get a useless card to hand. So it's a bit of a weird card in this deck, I think. But it still is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And just because it's difficult to use doesn't mean that it shouldn't be included. Next up, we got Pot of Greed, Raigeki, and Snatch Deal here. The Snatch Deal is in here to pair with the Thunder Dragons, although I was debating cutting the Snatch Deal in place of one of the other powerful cards that we cut, because you notice that we are not playing in the main deck Harpy's Feather Duster or any of the hand rips. And this was a very difficult cut to make for me, but I do think that we really do need the monsters here to fuel our chaos plays. And I kind of put this deck together with sort of not like a meme sort of deck philosophy, but I wanted to lean into the Chaos Turbo side of things. So this deck is definitely unoptimized. There are things that are wrong with this deck. But I figured the best way to sort of test out this sort of thing was lean too much in one direction and then course correct after playing the games. So that's why I went for this deck. This is definitely a preliminary version of it. But I definitely think that if you're making it on your own, you can potentially add things back like the hand rips, like Harpies. You could potentially add in things like Moment of Crossout or more Kaikus. There's a lot you could potentially do to change this deck after testing it. Moving on to the traps, we got Imperial Order, Mirror Force, Ring of Destruction, and Torrential Tribute. We're actually not playing Call of the Haunted here because the idea is we're going to be banishing a lot of cards from Grave, so Call of the Haunted might not be as good. But, it might be worth including in future builds of this deck. I just didn't really think it was the most worthwhile thing here. And honestly, I didn't really miss it in the games that I played. For the side deck, as I mentioned, we got the double Kaiku here against the Chaos matchup. We've also got Confiscation and Forceful Sentry. You could also fit Duo in the side deck. I'm not a big fan of Duo this format. That's a bit of a controversial take, I know. But Duo, it's a random discard, so your opponent can set up their own Chaos stuff. Also, you pay 1,000 life points, which, life points really do matter in this format. Also, it's a late game brick like the other hand rips, but it hurts all the more knowing that early game it might not even be that good either. So also it does, with Serpent in the format, it is a lot worse. Some people are playing Thunder Dragon, that also makes it a lot worse. So I'm not a biggest fan of Duo in this format, so that's why it's not on the side, but I know a lot of people do play it. So I definitely don't think it's a bad card to play. It's just something that I personally don't like. But we got the Harpies and Heavy as well for back row focused decks. We got Triple Royal Decree also for back row focused decks, especially things like, burn decks that are playing a bunch of traps. It's going to be very, very good. We got Double Moment across that. That's going to be good to bring in if you know you're going second, as well as if you're up against a more flip focused deck. We've got Double Sacrifice to Armor, Double Torrential Tribute here, in case you're up against a more aggressive deck. And then we've got a fully stocked fusion deck in case we take over a magical scientist or something. We're not playing scientist in this deck in the main. And that may also seem weird, but I figured we're going to be trying to get out Chaos Orc, we're going to be trying to get out our Chaos Monsters, and those can also deal with problematic threats that Scientists would normally deal with. They also don't cost you the life points the Scientist does, and also Scientist is a very vulnerable monster on board, especially when we're not playing many traps. So that's why I didn't really include it in this deck, but it is a very good card, so you could include it if you wanted to. But, quickly to go through the Fusion deck, as this is a pretty standard Fusion deck that I think most people should probably play some variation of. We got Triple Dark Balls for the Terrible, Triple 1,000 out of Strict. These are the monsters that you're most likely to bring out off Scientist. We've also got a monster you're never going to bring out off Scientist, Last Word from Another Planet, but could come up in certain Metamorphosis games. We've got Super Robo Yaru, and you normally have Super Robo Lady as well, but I cut it because it doesn't really come up off Scientist. But we're playing with an unlimited Fusion deck anyway, so you can proxy these things in. We got Ryu Senshi, which is another monster you're likely to bring out, stop your opponent's traps. We got Reaper on the Nightmare, another card you're likely never to bring out. Guilty of the D-Knight, the highest attack on a light monster you can bring out of Scientist. Fiend Skull Dragon can negate flip effects and targeted traps. We've got Dragonus the Whipped Knight at level 3, Darkfire Dragon level 4, and Dark Flare Knight here as the highest attack on a monster that you can bring out off of Scientist. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. I'm excited to see how these games go. I don't expect this deck to do the best, as it does have some glaring flaws, and I think it can break occasionally. But it will be fun to see what a more turbo Chaos deck can actually do. Okay, we got our first game here against Hoy, a frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're going to go for Rock. We do indeed win the rock, paper, scissors, which is very, very nice. And we will indeed be going first, as you always want to go first in this format. You get the extra draw, so it makes sense. We draw a pretty good opener. All these Chaos Orcs are kind of a brick. Kind of awkward with the Morphing Jar too, but they do count as Darks and Graves. So, that's something at least. We're going to go for Pot, see if this gets a bit better. Ooh, we got Thunder Dragon there. So, we're getting Lights and Grave as well. So that's pretty good. We're going to set this DD Warrior Lady, pass back to our opponent. We do keep our spells in hand, so that way we can pitch a Chaos Orc to get a Dark and Grave here. Now we have the Chaos set up, so we can go for the other Chaos Orc here. And I think this is a pretty good play here, as now our Morphing Jar can get more value later as well. So we're just going to go for this and pass back to our opponent. They've got a Thunder Dragon of their own, so maybe they're on the mirror here. They're going to add 2 Thunder Dragons from deck to hand. And they're just going to set one, pass back to us. We short Graceful, which is really, really good. We're going to go for that. Pitch these 2 Thunder Dragons that aren't doing anything in our hand here. And we draw a Grave Reaper Spy and another Morphing Jar, both of which are not bad. We're going to banish a Light and a Dark, go for Chaos Orc here, flip up a DD Warrior Lady, attack into their set. It is a Grave Reaper Spy of their own. Now, I don't banish here, because I figure I've got Raigeki. I can just attack over with Chaos Orc here, potentially. But I think maybe I should have, because I can banish their Grave Reaper Spy, attack over whatever else they hit, or just banish whatever else they bring out with the Spy effect to prevent them from having Chaos types in Grave. So I think that might have been the better choice here. But I don't do it. I keep the Spy on field, and I think that is a misplay in hindsight. But, I don't do it. I just banish their Spy there with the Sork, set the MST, set the MST, set a Spy of my own, pass back to them. If they've got Raigeki, that's unfortunate, but we've got Morphing Jar to sort of make up the lost cards here. They're going to Snatch Steal our Chaos Orc. We've got MST for that, so we'll stop that from going through. They're going to attack into our set. It is the Spy, so we're going to get out another Spy, get another Dark on field, and I'm feeling really good for Chaos typing if they do have a board clear here. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw Sinister Serpent here, which is pretty good. We are going to banish their Assailant with the Sork here. We're going to switch our Chaos Orc to defense, switch the Spy to attack, and then try and get in to their other monster there, banish that. Unfortunately, they've got this Mirror Force here, which will destroy both of our monsters, but it's not really the worst for us because we've got Light and Dark and Grave. We're going to set MST, set Raigeki, and set Morphing Jar, pass back to our opponent. And if that Morphing Jar goes off, we lose the Morphing Jar in hand, but I feel we're getting pretty good value off this jar. Opponent's going to set another pass back to us. Ooh, and we draw Mirage as well. That's crazy. We're going to go for Raigeki here in case they've got a Witch or the Black Forest or a Sangan set, so that way our Morphing Jar will be able to hit those out of hand. Unfortunately, it does not, but we're going to flip this Morphing Jar, pitch the 2 monsters in hand, and draw 5 more. Now, we could potentially set the Morphing Jar that we had in hand as well, but I figured we want to get aggressive here, and we're likely to draw a monster, and we do indeed draw monsters. So we're going to bring out this DD Warrior Lady, attack in for a ton of damage. And I'm feeling really good about this. We've also got Mirage plus MST to set up for next turn as well. So this is the turboest game of Chaos I could ever imagine. We're going to set the 2 spells and traps in hand. We're going to fire this Mirage, pass back to our opponent, and they're just going to admit defeat. They're like, I can't deal with this. This is too much. And I think that's about as good as the deck can do. So I'm really happy I got that game on camera. I mean, that was insane. And it does show how good this deck can be when it is firing on all cylinders here. Of course, it's not always going to do that. And we did have to do kind of a tricky play, going up to 7 cards in hand and pitching a Chaos Orc to actually turn that on. But that is something that you have to be thinking of when playing this deck. Our opponent's going to open up with Thunder Dragon again, adding 2 Thunder Dragons to hand here. And they're just going to set 1, set another, pass back to us. We draw Dark Hole, which is okay, but, not really the best here. We're going to think about this. We're going to bring out Sangan, and then we're going to change of heart their set, because if it is a Spy, we can bring out a Spy of our own, deprive them of getting the Spy here. And unfortunately, it's just a witch with Black Forest. But now we know it's a witch, so we can sort of play around it. If they get rid of our Sangam, we can bring out like a DD War Lady potentially and clear the witch that way. So I feel okay about this. Our opponent's going to go for a painful choice, send 3 hand rips, a scientist, and a Necro Valley. We've got MST for Necro Valley, so I figure I can just give them Necro Valley. I think in hindsight, maybe I should have just given them Duo instead, as they pay 1,000. They potentially rip a powerful card out of our hand, but we've also got the Serpent here to pitch for that. But Necro Valley trades for the MST here either way. So, like, either way, I'm losing a card out of hand, but this way I get to control which one I lose a little bit more. So I think that the Necro Valley is ultimately the right choice, but it is a bit awkward. It lets our opponent get a little bit more aggressive here. And also prevents our Chaos Stork from being online right away. Although, of course, we can change that with this MSD. We're going to add ADD Warrior Lady to hand. Our opponent's going to attack in for 2k. They're going to pass back to us. We draw a Spy here. So instead of going for the aggressive DD Warrior play and opening ourselves up for more damage from an Assailant, whatever else they want to bring out, I'm actually just going to set the Spy, set the MSD here. If they got an MSD in the end phase, it's going to be really bad for us because we can't shut off Necro Valley. But I think we're in a pretty decent spot even if we don't shut off Necro Valley here. But I'm going to hard tribute the Thunder Dragon over the Witch to prevent our DD Warrior Lady from hitting over that. Quite unfortunate. They do get a search. They search out the Gravekeeper Spear Soldier here. They're going to attack into our Spy, and we're going to be able to bring out another Spy in defense mode here. We could have brought out an attack actually because their Thunder Dragon can't hit over it. And main 2, they're just going to pass back to us. We draw a Thunder Dragon of our own. That's really good. We can get Chaos typing here. Now, I do just go for Spy into attack into the Thunder Dragon there. Get rid of that. And then main 2, I do fire MST on the Necro Valley, trying to shut it off. And then I go for the Thunder Dragon, pitching that, and bringing out the Chaos Stork here to banish their Assailant. Now, I think in hindsight, maybe I shouldn't have done this because I could have just cleared their board with the DD War Lady in hand as well. I also do have Dark Hole here. And honestly, it's like the Assailant isn't the most threatening thing here. So I think I maybe shouldn't have gone for this play, as it does turn on their own Chaos Monsters because they do have a Light and Dark and Grave now. But I figure they're on Necro Valley. They're probably not playing the Chaos Monsters in the main. So, or not even in the side probably. So, especially because they're probably going more all in on the Necro Valley stuff, seeing that we're playing Chaos Stork. So I figured they're probably not on Chaos Monsters, so we should be fine here. I just bring out the Stork and attack because I'm like, I don't think they're on Chaos Monsters. I don't think it's going to get punished. Unfortunately, it turns out they are on a BLS, and they do bring out a Spear Soldier as well. Hit over the Spy with the Spear Soldier. Hit over Chaos Stork and our Spy with their BLS. And so this is kind of unfortunate. We do have the Dark Hole, though, so, you know, we can come back from this, hopefully. Fire Dark Hole. Unfortunately, they've got Magic Jammer. They will pitch a Sinister Serpent there. And now we're in a really bad spot. We can set this DD War Lady. They have to hit over it with BLS if they want to clear it, or they can just banish it with BLS. Either way, we're buying ourselves a turn, but it is a little bit awkward. Maybe I should have just summoned out the Warrior Lady, attacked into the BLS, banished it that way. But then we go down 1,500 to 3,400, which is a very risky spot to be in, especially when they've got a Spear Soldier out there. But unfortunately, they got Raigeki, so either way, we weren't going to be winning this one. So that's going to be the end of game 2. I think I might have misplayed there with the Necro Valley thing. I don't think I had to do it. I think I could have just, you know, gone in for Warrior Lady to clear their last remaining monster. I don't know. There were a couple different ways I could have played that to sort of bide our time a little bit more. But yeah, I think I misplayed there for sure. So in better hands, we could have potentially won that game. Hopefully, we're still going to be winning game 3 here. Let's see how we do. But, you know, it's kind of funny because Gravekeepers is kind of a hard counter for our deck. We want to be setting up our Chaos stuff as much as possible. If they're going into Necro Valley all the time, that's going to be pretty bad for us. We actually do, you know, side into more spell and trap removal, things like Heavy Storm, Harpy Featherduster, to get rid of the Necro Valleys. I also do side out of card destruction here. And I bring in Nox as well for the Spies. So yeah, I kind of side out of the discard package, really. I side out of the card destruction, the morphing jars. I bring in, like, Heavy Storm, Hardy's Featherduster, you know, Nox. It's kind of funny because this isn't really showing off the full, like, Chaos Turbo side of things, really, because I have to side out of those. But, you know, it is what it is. And since we're going first, I do bring in the hand rips as well. So, actually, I keep in the card destruction. That's kind of interesting. I guess I keep them in to dig deeper into our spell and trap removal package, but I'm not really sure if that's the correct play there. But, you know, I go for Painful here. I send the hand rips, which they're probably not going to give us. I send card destruction, which is really good with our hand because we've got Thunder Dragon, we got Sinister Serpent, etc. And then I send a Light and a Dark here. So if they give us the Sangan or the Warrior Lady, then I'm okay with that. We can easily get another Dark or Light Engrave, depending on what we want. But, you know, if they give us the card destruction, I'm also very happy with that. If they give us the hand rips, I'm happy with that as well. So I feel like this is a good 5 to send off Painful. Opponent's going to think here they're going to give us the Warrior Lady, and that is perfectly fine. That's why we sent this Painful before discarding the Thunder Dragon. So we're just going to set a monster on field, add 2 Thunder Dragons from deck to hand, and then we are just going to set this Mirror Force, pass back to our opponent here. We got a hand of full monsters, which is very funny. Opponent's going to go for a Painful choice here. They're going to send a Nobleman of Crossout, a Magic Jammer, a Forceful, a Spear Soldier, and a Spear Soldier. Now, Nobleman would be very funny to give them, as that would banish their own spies as well. So I kind of debate giving them Nobleman for a second, but I think that would just be a bit too cheeky and not actually that good. So I'm just going to give them the Spear Soldier instead, because Spear Soldier doesn't do anything against spy. So I feel good about giving that back. It's also one more dark out of grave, so that's pretty good. Probably going to go for Graceful, though, so they can set that up in grave again if they want to. They're going to pitch a Necro Valley and a Reborn, which tells me that they likely have another Necro Valley in their hand. They're going to go for Knock. I banished 2 spies here. And it looks like they do not have any spies left in deck. So that means they either bricked out all of them in hand, or they're just not playing them anymore, which is kind of interesting. Opponent's going to go for Spear Soldier, summon out, or activate this Necro Valley, attack in for 2,000. We could Mirror Force that, but we're just going to take it because we got DD Warrior Lady to deal with the Spear Soldier next turn. If they want to commit another monster board and attack into our set, then we can just, you know, fire the Mirror Force in that. When I said DD Warrior Lady, set this Mirage. Mirage is here as a bit of a bluff. We don't want to lose the Mirror Force. And if they've got like MST, then they're probably going to fire it on our new back row as opposed to our old one. Mirage is also really not useful for us right now because we got 3 monsters in hand that we can't really get out of hand. So there's no real point to actually firing it here. Our opponent's going to attack in to our Warrior Lady, banish that. And, you know, we do take 400, but we do banish 1 more dark out of their field. They're going to bring out another Spear Soldier, pass back to us. That's fine. We got another Warrior Lady. This Necro Valley is kind of annoying because we got Latent Dark set up, but we, you know, can't bring out BLS because they can't banish from grave. So we're going to set another Warrior Lady, pass back to our opponent. They're going to just attack over the Warrior Lady here, and that is fine by us. We take 400, banish their monster, and it looks like they're just going to pass back to us. That's, you know, I'm happy with that. We're going to set this Sinister Serpent, pass back to them. We know that both Noblemen's gone, so, you know, we don't really have to worry about this. And let's see what they do. They're just going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Shrimp's Tribute, which is pretty good. We're going to tribute over the Sinister Serpent for this Thunder Dragon here. We get to attack in for 1,600 and pass back to them. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw. We don't add back Sinister Serpent in standby phase, which is a major misplay. If they've got like a Kaiku and a way to clear the Necro Valley, then we will lose our Serpent here. But, you know, it's just kind of unfortunate. We do have Knock for their set, though. So, ultimately, we're still doing fine here. But if we, you know, gotten back the Serpent, we could have set the Serpent here, set up for another Thunder Dragon on the following turn, and been getting in for even more damage. So, I think this was a major misplay on my part. They're going to Snatch Steal our Thunder Dragon. Also, if they had done this, and, you know, we had gotten back the Serpent and done that play, then they wouldn't have been able to attack us directly here as well. And, yeah, so we gain 1,000 here from the Snatch. We're going to fire MST on the Necro Valley here as opposed to the Snatch Steal, because that way we can clear the Thunder Dragon just by bringing out a Chaos Monster. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to bring out this BLS, try and just hit over our Thunder Dragon. If that fails, we can always bring out Chaos Sork. Oh no, we don't have another Dark Engrave. So actually, I think maybe here I should have brought out Chaos Sork to guarantee I had a Light and Dark Engrave after going for this play in case the BLS died. So maybe this was a bit of a misplay. I do have Mirage here, so if this does, you know, lose us the BLS, then we can set TT Fire Mirage and hopefully draw something that can get us out of it that way, but it is a little bit awkward here. We're just going to go for an attack over the Thunder Dragon. If they've got Mirror Force, this gets punished. If they've got Saku, then this gets punished. But otherwise, I think this is the best option. We want to get this light back in grave. And it looks like that will indeed go through. So we're going to attack in for a ton of damage here. Pass back to our opponent. And they've got Thunder Dragon of their own. So that means that their draw was dead, which I'm happy about. Or they were holding that. So, you know, I'm happy about this turn of events. They're going to banish a Light and Dark of their own, go for a BLS of their own. That's very scary. They're going to change of heart our BLS, and then they're going to attack in for 6,000. We do have this Mirror Force here, so we will be able to clear both of those, very luckily. And our opponent's going to set 1, pass back to us. We, again, forget to add, or no, okay, we don't this time. Good. we do remember to add back the Serpent this time because we're in a bit of a risky spot. So we're going to set the Serpent, set the Heavy Storm, set the TT, and now we can fire this Mirage, pass back to our opponent. They do have IO to shut off the Mirage. Now, they have to do this, like, chaining to the Mirage effect, because they do have to let IO go in the standby phase, and if IO is active before the standby phase, you have to resolve its cost before you resolve Mirage. So they have to go for it here. That will stop the Mirage. Then they'll have to, send IO to the grave because they can't pay its maintenance cost. So since Mirage is once per turn, I do believe that you then won't get to draw off that if that turn events happens. But that's just, I mean, if anyone knows in the comments down below, let me know. But yeah, I think this is ultimately fine. We draw a ring, and this should probably be the end of the game. We just tribute off the Thunder Dragon there, set the ring, pass back to them. In draw, we're just going to fire this ring. If they've got Book, which they might have because they're playing Spear Soldiers, they're not playing Spies right now, but Books could be a relic from playing that in the main deck with Spies. But we're just going to go for ring in the draw phase here anyways. If they've got Book, then we draw off Mirage, so we're not feeling too bad about it. But if they don't, this is the end of the game. And it looks like they're going to think about this, and they realize that they can't do anything here. Yeah, no Books in hand. They just had Double Thundra, Dark Hole, and Necro. They had Scientist, which is pretty decent, but they couldn't play for Scientist, so it was actually pretty bad at that point. And they also had Assailant, which couldn't do anything against Thunder Dragon. I mean, I guess if they fired the Necro Valley, then it could. But still, I think we were in a very, very good spot there. Either way, and that will indeed be the end of the game. So very, very good game here, very good match, and I think it really does show what this deck can do when firing on all cylinders. Now, I didn't play this deck perfectly here, but even without playing it perfectly, it was still very, very powerful, and having the extra Chaos Monsters was very strong. This wasn't the only game I got with the deck, though. Let's dive into the next one. Okay, we got a game against Colgate here, freaking us the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're going to dive in to the match here. We do win the rock decision, so we are going to be going first. Colgate always brings some spice, so this may not be against the most meta threat, but it still will be a pretty fun game. We're just going to pitch Thunder Dragon, add 2 Thunder Dragons to hand, and I mean, when you get a hand like this, you kind of got to telegraph Morphing Jar, even if it's kind of unfortunate. But yeah, we're going to set the Morphing Jar, set everything else. If they've got Harpies, if they've got like Nobleman, we've got the IO for that. So I feel okay about this. But they're going to bring out Scientist here, and we are just going to ring the Scientist because they're not going to use priority on that. And yeah, so we got to get rid of the Scientist here before it can bring out a Dark Bolter, negate our Morphing Jar, and put us in a bad spot. Now, arguably, we could have just let that go through because a 300 attack point monster isn't that big of a deal. We're telegraphing Morphing Jar anyways, and realistically, in order to actually clear the Morphing Jar, they're going to have to bring out 2 monsters, Senshi and Balter, because otherwise they can just ring their Balter in battle phase. So arguably, I didn't have to do this, and I should have just let them, pay 2,000, get out some cards. But I think ultimately it's fine. If they don't prio, I'm not going to let them bring out monsters here. So I'm just going to go for the ring. And they're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Chaos Orc, which is pretty decent. Gets us a Dark Engrave to fuel our Chaos stuff. And we're going to pitch a bunch of cards off Morphing Jar. They're going to pitch a lot of cards as well off Morphing Jar, which I'm happy to see. It seems like they're on Super Rejuvenation, so bit of a janky deck likely. But yeah, I mean, I guess they didn't want to set more into like our potential back row clears, but yeah, maybe it would have been better to set against a Morphing Jar here. We draw a very good hand. We could potentially just win the game this turn, actually. And, the real thing giving me pause is that lone back row there. That could potentially come back to bite me. So what I'm going to actually do here is it's going to be kind of interesting. I'm going to go for Painful Choice here. Send triple MST, a Breaker, and then a Monster Reborn. Because what I want to do here, I want to bring Injection Fairy Lily this turn, attack in with Injection Fairy Lily and Morphing Jar, and then, bring out Chaos Emperor Dragon and end the game. That's what I want to do. So the main thing that I'm worried about here is Torrential Tribute. So if we bring out Injection Fairy Lily, they Torrential Tribute, we can then reborn the Injection Fairy Lily, bring out CD, and then win the game that way. Mirror Force would also be a problem here, but we can't really play around Mirror Force as much if we don't get any of these spell and trap removers. So, the reborn can then give us follow-up plays later. Either way, I think this should be pretty good, and give us with, a way, if we don't win the game this turn, to at least win the game next turn. So we're going to bring out this Injection Fairy Lily, attack in for 4,100 here. And then we're going to banish a Light and Dark from Grave, and bring out CD, and try and just win the game here, using Prio, pay 1,000. Now, their set is Mystical Space Typhoon, so what they actually could have done here is they could have chained Mystical Space Typhoon to December Dragon Envoy the End's effect, got rid of one of our back row. Then there would only be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I don't know, it'd still be enough to kill them here. So yeah, the MST won't do it, but that is why they think about it. But they could at least get more information on what we're playing potentially. We also do have this IO here to prevent the MST from actually destroying something, so it wouldn't actually matter here. But yeah. Yeah, they see even with the MST, it's too much damage. So that will be the end of the game. And as a note for CED, it does use its original effect, not the eroded effect. So we can't actually do this even though we have activated other cards the turn that we're playing it. So yeah, that'll be the end of the game there. And it really does show how powerful CED can be. I mean, we won the game in like 2 turns. So, I mean, the Chaos Turbo deck can really be very threatening if it's allowed to go off. But also our opponent did brick a bit. I mean, it looks like they're playing a bit of a janky deck. So, you know, that makes sense that this deck's probably going to eat a deck like that alive. But still, it should be fun to actually see how it does in Game 2. We're going to dive into Game 2. I actually side out of the discard stuff here, because if you're playing against a deck that's playing Super Rejuvenation, you don't want to give them the draws. So I side out of the discard stuff, which is quite unfortunate, as that's the sort of bread and butter of this deck. But it's what I have to do. Now, we could potentially get aggressive here, something out Breaker, popping one of their back row, and doing things that way. But what I want to do instead is I want to just set this Spy, set an MST pass. It's a bit of a passive play, but I don't want to play into like Torrential Tribute or something. If I flip up the Spy next turn and they've got TT, they've got to make the decision. Do I Torrential on the Spy Summon, or do I Torrential whatever's coming next? And we can get in for like 2,400 potentially. They're going to MST, our MST, so either way, MST is trading 1 for 1 with the back row there, so I'm ultimately fine with that. Opponent's going to set 1, pass back to us, and we're just going to flip up this Spy, bring out another Spy, get in for 2,400, and then instead of going for a Breaker play here, as we are playing really hard into like Dark Hole or Raigeki, I'm just going to actually set this Serpent and try and bait out the Dark Hole or Raigeki. So our opponent's going to fire the Dark Hole indeed, and we do lose the Serpent. We get back the Serpent next turn, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. They're going to Forceful Sentry, get rid of that Reborn here, prevent us from getting even more aggressive. Then you're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw a Nobleman of Crossroad, which is pretty good. Now, again, I don't add the Serpent back to hand in the standby phase. I really need to remember to do that. Maybe I should write a sticky note reminding me to do that. But, like, yeah, I mean, even if we don't get back the Serpent, it wouldn't really change what we did here. But if they've got Kaiku, then, you know, we obviously don't want Serpent in Grave. So we're just going to bring out TT Warley to attack them directly. They do have Mirror Force here, which is somewhat surprising because they knew we had Breaker. But this is kind of like another level mind game, because they're like, you know, we know that they have Breaker, or, you know, we know that they know what we have Breaker, right? So, they're probably not going to have their newest back row be the one that we want to break, right? That's going to be Breaker bait. So, you know, it makes a lot of sense for them to set an actual live back row just to sort of mind game us with the Breaker. So I think that was a really neat play. They're going to go for this charity here. They're going to pitch a Harpy's Feather Duster and a Kaiser Glider. So that's the dragon for Super Rejuve. So it seems like they're on like a Chaos Dragon sort of thing. You know, I'm not really sure how good that is, but it is kind of interesting here. They've got Comfy as well, so they'll be able to hit a card out of our hand. They're going to hit the Breaker. And they're going to pass back to us. We draw Injection Fairy Lily, which is very good. We're going to remember to add back the Serpent this time. We're going to summon out this Injection Fairy Lily, attack in for 3,400. And they've got Ring for that, so that is ultimately kind of unfortunate. But, you know, it is at least getting rid of their Ring, which is pretty good. Our opponent is going to bring out a Luster Dragon here, attack in for 1,900. We'll take that. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Dark Hole here. We could potentially Dark Hole the Luster Dragon, but we don't really need to do that. We can just set the Serpent, set a Nobleman, pass back to them. They're going to summon out a Scientist, which is really bad for us, because that Scientist will be able to bring out Dark Vulture. Dark Vulture will be able to hit over our Serpent, prevent it from coming back to hand, and that's going to be very unfortunate. Opponent's going to attack in for 2,200, and that puts down fairly low. They're going to pass back to us, and we draw a Painful Choice. Painful Choice can potentially be very good here. Although it's a bit awkward. I'm not quite sure what to actually get, but we're going to go for Painful Choice. We're going to send a bunch of monsters here. We send Spy because, you know, the other Spies aren't really useful to us, but if we set Spy, that can be pretty good. We send Cyberjar as well, because, you know, destroying the board that way can be pretty good. Also, if they do give us Cyberjar, we can go for Dark Hole here, summon out Cyberjar, attack in for 900. We got Change of Heart. If they bring out another monster, we can then Change of Heart their monster and get in for more damage, potentially lethal damage as well. So I feel like, you know, that could potentially be an option there. We bring out the Kaikus because we can attack into their Scientist, banish cards from grave, and that's pretty good. We also bring out Tribe to clear their board that way, potentially. So they're going to give us the Cyberjar here, which tells me that they might have Noman or a Raigeki of their own. So we're just going to go for a Dark Hole here, summon out the Cyberjar, attack in for 900. Because again, next turn, we can likely just change heart whatever monster they bring out here, attack in for potentially lethal damage. Also, we could, if they don't have a monster, we could just keep hitting in with Cyberjar, getting in for damage here. I don't want to replenish their hand, given that they are very, very low on cards here. So, unfortunately, this play does come back to bite us. They're going to MST our set just in case, and then they're going to bring out a BLS, which is one of the few monsters that can actually kill us here. I mean, CD could also kill us here. So if they had a Chaos monster, then we were likely dead, but if they didn't, then I felt like this was a pretty good spot to be in. But yeah, so that's going to be unfortunate for us. Now, if we had set the Cyberjar here, this would have been a lot rougher for us. They just had Spirit Rejuve and a Witch. So, they probably wouldn't have done this because they knew about Change of Heart, so... we could have just changed of hearted their BLS next turn. So, yeah, but I think this was probably a misplay, but I do like the sort of idea of it. So, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but yeah, it definitely was the thing that lost us the game there. And that's why Painful Choice is like such a hard card to play in this deck. You don't have like clear options a lot of the time. And I'm not really sure that Painful Choice was the correct 5 to send. Although I do agree with a lot of the monsters I sent. Maybe the Cyberjar was not the right thing to do. But we're going to go in to the next game here, see what happens, and hopefully we'll be able to pull out victory from the Dragon Jaws of Defeat. This is a very, very good opening hand here. We're going to set this Spy, we're going to set a Mirror Force, pass back to them. They're going to just set 2, set 3, and fire Mirage back to us. That's very unfortunate. They're going to go for Mirage here, draw 2, and then we're going to flip up Spy, attack in for 2,400, hopefully, if we can. We could have also summoned out the Warley, attacked in that way, then bring out, like, Chaos Ember Dragon, and gotten in for a ton of damage there. If they, like, popped our entire field, like Mirror Force or something. But that's a bit too greedy for me. I want to save the CD as more of a finisher, especially because we've got a pretty good board setup here. We're going to attack in for 2,400. And then we're going to go to main 2, fire this Comfy here, just to take out the best card remaining in their hand here. I figure they likely do have an MST set for the Mirage, but it looks like they don't have an MST in hand, so they're going to have one for the Mirage here. Oh wait, actually they fire Io, so I shouldn't know that. Yeah, they fire Io. Sorry for forgetting that. So we don't actually see the hand, we don't know what they've got there. But Io will stop the Mirage from going through, so that's pretty good. And they are actually going to let the IO go, which is kind of wild to me. But they're going to go for a Super Rejuve play, which makes some sense. If all the remaining cards in hand are dragons, then this is basically this free card advantage from doing this. But it is a little bit weird, but yeah, they do go for that, and I'll pick 2 for them to keep, and they pitch a Luster Dragon and a Mirror Force, so they pitch some good cards there. They're going to go for a Raigeki break on our back row there, and they've got a Luster Dragon as well, so they'll be able to Hidden Spy, draw 2 in the end phase with Rejuve, but that kind of does pair poorly with the Mirage there, because now they draw 2 less off Mirage, so I don't know how much I like this deck idea here, because Rejuve just doesn't seem that good. But it is something that you can do. They're going to draw 2 off Mirage, and I think I actually do have a lethal line here. So, it's kind of awkward because if their back row is live, then this might not be lethal. But I'm just going to summon out this Warrior Lady, Change of Heart, their Luster Dragon, attack in for a ton of damage here. And since we do need a light and dark and grave, I did have to bring out the Warrior Lady and not the Breaker, because I want to go for the kill shot with CD. So we're going to dark hole the board, bring out CD, and unless it's Solemn Judgment, there shouldn't be much our opponent can do here. And we will indeed win the game here. So very, very good games, I think. And yeah, this was a good match to show off the deck, I think, even though we were playing a bit of a jank strategy. I do think that this match does show off this deck's power. I mean, we won like on turn 2, like 2 games in this match. Maybe no, it was 3 because our opponent did get another turn here. But this deck can be very, very quick, and that's part of its power. So this wasn't the only game that I featured with the deck. I also got a game against a deck that's a bit more meta relevant, because while playing against jank can be fun, it's always good to play against more sort of meta decks. Okay, we got a game against Shauner, and we are playing the Chaos Turbo deck. Hopefully we can manage to win the rock, paper, scissors here. We lose it, so our opponent is going to be able to go first, which is quite unfortunate. And we draw 5 pretty good ones here. Our opponent is going to think about this, and they're going to set one, set another, pass back to us. We draw Graceful Charity here. So this is a pretty powerful opening hand. We're going to go for Pot of Greed. We draw Thunder Dragons. We're going to pitch that. Grab 2 Thunder Dragons to hand. We're going to go for Graceful here. I mean, this is just insane. Like, this is one of the luckiest hands that we've ever drawn here. We also got Mirage and MST, so that's really nice as well. We're just going to set this Spy, set a Mirage and MST, and then pass back to our opponent. We want to hold Ring in hand because, you know, it's not much can get over Spy and get rid of it. But if they've got like Harvey's Feather Duster or something to clear our back row, that would be unfortunate. They're going to fire Knock here, which is very unfortunate for us. We lose the 2 Spies here. We do have Sangan and Cyberjar in hand, so that is Dark Chaos fodder here. And our opponent's going to flip a Scientist, bring out a Ryu Senshi here. So this is a bit worrying. They are going to bring out a Kaiku, and now they're going to get in for 2,100. So we will lose 2 lights from Grave. We do still have this Thunder Dragon Grave, though, so it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is kind of rough, and maybe a sign that we should have set the Ring, although Ring would have died to Senji here, so it wouldn't really matter there much either way. We draw Chaos Orc, so unfortunately we won't be able to do much there. We're going to attack in to the Scientists here, deal 700. And then main 2, we're going to set this Ring, pass back to our opponent. And now we can hopefully get a Dark and Grave. They're going to fire Heavy Storm here, getting rid of all of our back row. That's quite unfortunate. We do have this Solemn for the Kaiku there. So we'll be able to fire that and get rid of that. Luckily, their back row does not stop that. It was a Bottomless. That's very interesting. But yeah, they are going to bring out Breaker, which is kind of unfortunate for us. But we do get the Dark and Grave. We get a search as well. We're going to search out this Witch. And they're going to pass back to us. We draw DD Warley, which is pretty good here. We are going to banish a Light in the Dark, bring out Chaos Orc in defense, and priority banish their Breaker. This plays around Bottomless a little bit, because if they've got another Bottomless, they can banish our Historic, which would be bad. But at least this way, you know, we get the banish off beforehand. So it's like a 2-for-1 trade on their part. But we're going to go for Witch here, attack in directly for 1,100, and then pass back to them. They're going to set another, pass back to us. And we have exact lethal on board if this goes through. So we're just going to switch the Chaos Orc to attack in. Unfortunately, they do have the Mirror Force, but this played around pretty much anything besides Mirror Force. So I think it's ultimately fine. We're going to search out a Lily, potentially go for game next turn. Main 2, we're just going to set this DD Warrior Lady, pass back to our opponent. And they're going to go for Dark Hole on the Warrior Lady. I think that was the right play on their part, but unfortunately, you know, this Warrior Lady will be able to go for damage here. If they clear the Warrior Lady, we actually do have a Light and Dark in Grave to go for BLS and get him for a ton of damage as well. So I feel like this is ultimately pretty good, but that will indeed be just the end of the game with the Warrior Lady there. So, you know, very, very good showing for the deck in game 1 here. Going into game 2, opponent is likely going to bring in more side deck text for things like Chaos, because, you know, they already had the Kaiku, but they can potentially go even more all in on anti-Chaos, knowing that we're on the Sorks. They're going to go for Forceful here, and again, this is a cracked opening hand. Like, this hand is crazy. So they're actually going to send the Thunder Dragon here. I think that is a decent play because, you know, Thunder Dragon gets us Lights in Grave. It's a brick later on. So I do think that is a decent Forceful, but, you know, there really wasn't a good Forceful pick there. The hand is just all crazy cards. We're going to go for Painful Choice here, and we're going to send Serpent, Double Morphing Jar, Cyber Jar, and a Spy. The reason we do this is because we got a very strong hand overall already, so the jars aren't really going to be as used for us later in the game, and the Spy is also, like, you know, we've got 3 Spies in deck. If they give us this 1 Spy, we can get another Spy. If they don't, then, you know, the other Spies are still live. So I think this is ultimately fine. We don't set up a Light and Dark in Grave yet, which is kind of unfortunate, but I figure with Mirage and Graceful, we should have one coming relatively soon. They're going to give us this Morphing Jar here. We'll add that back to hand. We're going to set the Morphing Jar and then just set 2, fire this Mirage, pass back to our opponent. It's a little bit awkward because, you know, if they attack into the Morphing Jar, you know, the Mirage here will potentially, like, will lose good cards off the Mirage, but this also will likely set up a Light and Grave. Also, you know, if they try and attack into the Morphing Jar, we like the hand that we have off Mirage, we can go for the TT here. So I think either way, it's fine. So Mirage will draw us a pretty decent hand here. They've got Knock, though, so, you know, either way, you know, we don't have to use the TT yet. I'm going to flip up a Spy, attack in for just 1,200. They're going to play around Mirror Force. I think that makes sense. They're going to attack in for 1,200, and they're going to pass back to us. I like this hand, so we're going to fire MST on the Mirage. They think that we're going for the Bottomless Trap Hole, which is, you know, kind of rough. So I'm just going to play as if I don't know, you know, they've got the Bottomless Trap Hole there. So what I'm going to do here, There's a couple of different options, but I think the best one is just to bring out Tribe and then priority pitch, targeting Spellcaster. They've got a bottomless here, but either way, this is a pretty good trade for me. I could potentially go for a Reborn to get in more damage, but there aren't really any good monsters in Grave to Reborn, so I think it's ultimately fine. They're going to go for Heavy Storm on our back row, which is kind of rough. Maybe I should have gone for a Graceful, set up a Light and Dark Engrave to go for BLS. Actually, I think that probably would have been the better choice overall. Yeah, so I think I misplayed this. I should have just brought up BLS and done that. But as is, I lose the Graceful. Very, very powerful card that I lost there. So kind of unfortunate. Card Destruction won't quite do enough for me here. We get back to Serpent here. And we're just going to set the Serpent, set the Card Destruction, pass back to them. We don't want to lose the Blackluster Soldier here. If we lose the Serpent, that's fine. We get the DD War Lady to press our advantage here. But yeah, they're going to attack into the set Serpent. It is Serpent, so they're actually not going to banish that, and that is fine by us. We draw a Ring, which is really good. We can add back that Serpent there. We're just going to bring a DD Warley attack into their new set. It is a Scientist. We're not going to banish that. You know, they've got all Darks in Grave. If they manage to clear the Warrior Lady, that's unfortunate, but I'm also fine just banishing both Warrior Ladies here. So they're going to go for Snatch Steal on our Warrior Lady, and we could potentially, like, Ring of Destruction the other Warrior Lady to... I mean, we'd still take the same amount of damage, but at least this way, you know, it takes a Warrior Lady off their field. But I'm actually going to save it. I figure I've got outs to this. I can also Reborn their Scientist here, you know, clear things that way. So I think it's ultimately fine. Unfortunately, they've got a a Terraforming here for Necro Valley. So, you know, this is going to be pretty hard to actually get out of because we can't fire Reborn, we can't fire BLS. So it's going to be awkward. We do gain 1,000 off the Snatch Deal there. We're going to pitch this Thunder Dragon, add 2 Thunder Dragons from deck to hand. We're not going to pitch the other one because it goes very well with Card Destruction here. We're going to set the Reborn just for later, and then we're going to go for the Card Destruction here, pitching 4, drawing 4, hopefully getting some good stuff here. And those are pretty good options. I mean, Breaker is about as good as we could ask for. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up Breaker. We're going to pop the Snatch Deal there, get back our Warrior Lady, and attack over their Warrior Lady with our Breaker. They're going to banish both, and then we can get in for 1,500. We could have also potentially MST'd their Necro Valley, gone for a Reborn on a card in Grave. But if you look at our graveyard, not really much good to Reborn. I guess maybe the Kaiku is good to Reborn with Necro Valley gone to banish monsters from the grave. But, you know, I think it's ultimately fine. We got Ring Destruction set to pop whatever they might bring out. And I think this is ultimately okay. And I also don't want to wind them in a situation like I did in the first Grave Cubers match where I cleared Necro Valley and they bring out a Chaos Monster. So they're going to go for Graceful here, drawing 3, and they will be able to pitch 2 here. They're going to pitch a Lily and a TT. They're going to set one, set another, pass back to us. We draw Sangian, which is pretty good. We are going to add back that Serpent to hand, you know, actually remembering to do it this time. Necro Valley does not actually stop Serpent because Serpent only affects itself, and at this point in time, Necro Valley did not prevent cards that affected themselves from coming back from Grave. So we're going to bring out this Sangian here, attack into their set with the Warrior Lady. It's a Warrior Lady of their own. We are just going to banish it, prevent them from getting another Light Engrave, get in for 1,000. I figure it's pretty good. And we're going to pass back to them. Whoops. We are going to... oh, they've got Harpies. So we actually have a bit of a choice here. We could potentially ring our own Sangan. It deprives them of 1,000 life points, gets us a search, so it's not bad. But I actually don't do it because I figured next turn we're going to be attacking in for 1,000 anyways. So there's no real point to ringing now. I mean, the search could be good. But yeah, it won't end the game here. So I think it's ultimately fine. Just leave the Sangan. We're going to bring out a Kaiku here, attack in for 2,800. And that will indeed connect. So we can't banish from the grave because Necro Valley's up. We're just going to set this MSG, set the Mirror Force, pass back to them. I feel like this is a very, very good situation. Unfortunately, they do have Dark Hole to clear the Sangan and the Kaiku. But we will get a search off Sangan. We're going to search at Lily. Next turn, we can just MST their lone unknown back row, which is indeed just an Imperial Order. And that should be the end of the game. Yeah, it's just an IO, so they're going to admit defeat here. But yeah, we did have the MST for that, so I felt really good about this. And this does show, like, you know, talking to them after, it turns out that their deck is sort of like an anti-meta deck, so it's sort of like anti-chaos. You've got the Necro Valleys in the main. You've got bottomless trap holes to deal with the big chaos monsters. So, you know, I think it's kind of a good sign for this deck if it could beat, like, an anti-chaos deck, right? This is Chaos Turbo. So I think that this is a pretty cool deck to play around with. Again, you know, there are some things that I'd probably change in the future, like maybe some of the Jar engine, some of the card destruction engine, maybe cutting that is going to be good. But I think with so many Chaos Monsters in the format, like just getting out one Chaos Monster is very good. Like even if Chaos Orc isn't as crazy as like BLS or CED, like it's still a 2,300 attack point monster that can banish things on your opponent's side of the field. that is a very, very good card. So even if you're having to discard a BLS, banish it as your light target for a Chaos Orc, I think that that might be a worthwhile thing to do. I think this deck has some promise, and I'm curious to see if people will continue to experiment with it in the future. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed as always. If you do enjoy this content, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help me a lot. And if you want to support me directly, I do have a Patreon. Link is in the description of this video. And, you'll get your name shouted out in these videos. So big shout outs to Rincewind, GMYFS, Bren Donker, and Pork Chop Coon. Thank you all so much for your support. I couldn't do it without y'all. And also, I do have other tiers as well for Patreon, where you can sort of suggest video ideas and also get exclusive video content as well. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed as always. Let me know what you think of the deck down in the comments below. And until next time, I've been Ben from YG from Zero, and I'm signing off.